Okay, hopefully I can get this done as quick as possible because it's after midnight and I don't like recording after midnight because I get sleepy. Anyway, let's do this. Hello everybody, my name is Boy Skylark, aka Skylark, and I am your teacher today. Today we are going to be learning about line art. I know a lot of people struggle with line art, and a lot of people find that line art is a very cumbersome task, so I am going to explain it a little bit to you guys, and what the purpose of line art is, and some tools that'll make line art a lot easier for you. So, what is line art? Okay, line art is literally what it sounds like. It is the art of line making. What we as a community of artists see as line art is actually what is called inking. Inking comes in so many different forms and flavors and so many different ways and techniques. A lot of people will see somebody do line art and the line art is very clean and crisp and very, nice, or it has this very consistent texture to it that makes the artwork have a little bit more movement. But the reality is that anything can be line art. You don't necessarily have to do clean inking on your piece for it to have line art. If you've ever taken a moment to look at my portfolio and see my pinup paintings of horror characters, that includes Pearl, the Blissfield Butcher, Michael from the Rob Zombie Halloween, and the nurse from Silent Hill. All of those don't have line art. They are fully sketched with one brush and then painted like I would normally do with any other line art piece. So I want to first break down some external tools that you guys can use for line art making, inking kind of stuff, because a lot of people seem to have an issue with stability and their hand shaking. So one of the major things that you'll hear people say is, my line art is so good because I use stability. Stability is a coding for tools within art programs that allows the brush to slow down and follow your hand more precisely. Even if your hand is shaky, it follows that motion. It kind of has this almost rigid movement to it that follows the motion of where your pen is going rather than following the shakiness of your pen. It's kind of a way that the brush processes precision. So if you leave your stability or your stabilizer at 0, it's going to be incredibly precise and track every single movement of your pen. I'm going to actually make a new layer so that I could show you this in Clip Studio. I'm just going to use my sketch brush, which I use the Artemis HB for sketching. I also use Sean's Sketcher. I don't remember exactly his username, but I got it a while back for my iPad. Anyway, I'm going to use Artemis HB and I'm going to set it to 50. No, I'll set it to 100 so you guys can really see. And then I'm going to take the stabilizer down here. Are you recording? Okay, you are. Cool. I'm going to take the stabilizer down here in my brush settings on the lower left hand side, and I'm going to take it and I'm going to set it all the way to 0. This way you guys can see what I'm talking about when I say that the brush, when it's set to 0, it's more stable or more precise. As you can see, my hand is not stable at all, and my XP pen actually does not care very much for having no stabilization. So if I wanted something that's a little bit more natural, I would range from 5 to 15 because then it processes the line without the shakiness. I'm gonna turn the sketches off as well. The higher you go, the more stable it gets. So typically, if I'm doing inking of any kind, I will set the brush that I'm using to about 45. I don't like 50 because 50 feels just a little too much, and anything lower than that feels just a little too loose. So I do 45 because 45 has that appropriate amount of delay for my line to both be straight and consistent with what I'm trying to do. If you go any higher than that, in Clip Studio, the highest is 100. In Paint Tool Side 2, I do believe the highest is like an S10, which is akin to the 100. The 100's really gonna delay. So you can go really fast, but it's still gonna delay, no matter what. So that's just a quick breakdown of what stabilization is, and there's tons and tons and tons of external programs that you can use for stabilization. I do believe there's one called Stabilization Key or something along those lines. I personally use Lazy Nezumi. That one, hold on, sorry. That one worked for me throughout college, and like I used it to do a lot of my animations, and I used it to learn animation. So that's what I used mostly, because it did have a more of a draw string that would pull the brush along. This way you can see where the brush is going as you're pulling it. Along with a few of the other like random ruler tools that it has. It works really well for me. It also has a perspective ruler installed in it and stuff like that. So if you have a program like Photoshop that doesn't have those options, or is just brand new to those options, Lazy Nezumi is a industry standard. There are tons of industries, from the graphic design industry to Pixar, that uses Lazy Nezumi simply to help with rulers and stabilizers. Also, like I said, other programs have this feature built in already. Clip Studio Paint has it, Sai has it, Photoshop is just now getting it. I think within the last 5 years they're just now getting it. Who else has it? Ibis Paint has it, I do believe. Krita definitely has it. Procreate has it. Sketchbook Pro definitely has it. Sketchbook Pro's dedicated animation program has it. And I can go on and on, right? So those are programs that all have stabilization to help you with your line work. Now, one major thing that people need to understand about line work, and while I'm talking, I'm just gonna move my tablet so that I can lower it so I can start showing you guys some examples of how to do this. So one thing that people need to understand about line work is line weight. So line weight is the density of your line as you go through. So I'm gonna make a note with my little G pen. Cool. I'm gonna zoom in a little bit more so that I can make a note up here. So, line weight see if I can spell properly. Line weight is, for all intents and purposes, this is not a one-to-one definition. Like if you Google the definition, this is not what you're gonna find. I'm just doing it based off of my knowledge. So line weight is the density. Oops. Spelling is not my strong suit, guys. The density of your drawn line. So when you think of line weight, a lot of people tend to think of, well, my line weight has to be consistent throughout, blah, 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 blah. And it really doesn't. So I'm going to just grab a figure ruler, which is a cool feature that Clip has where you can draw any shape that they allow you to. So square, circle, rectangle, hexagon, octagon, decagon, so on and so forth, triangle, stuff like that. So I'm going to use a triangle, a rounded corner triangle to show you what I mean. So I'm going to set my brush to 45 again because I do prefer that. So line weight in a traditional, in a sense of the general, not a traditional sense, in the sense of the general, a lot of people think of line weight as, like I said, this thing that has to be consistent. It has to be the same all the way through, like this. I have cartooning brushes that do this. So a lot of people look at line weight as this. It's just consistent all the way through. No variations, no dips, no nothing. It's just one size all the way through. And that is boring. It genuinely is boring. So line weight can vary. It can vary based on how close an item is to itself. It can vary based on the shadow. It can vary based on the amount of light hitting something, and on and on. So I'm going to show you, let's say we have a light source coming from this angle, and this angle is in shadow. I'm going to use a little cloud to show shadow. So, and this ties in with the next lesson coming up later this month on ambient occlusion, just so you guys have that in your mind. So if it's closer to the light, the line is going to be thinner. So if you go with a very light hand and then start to get heavier as you get closer to the shadow, then full pressure when you're at the shadow, and then as you get closer to the light, you start to lighten up again. That's line weight. So if I were to go about making a new layer and filling this in, and I'm just going to use these pinks right here. I'm going to use refer to other layers, and I'm going to fill in that pink. The darker pink, I'm going to do this dark pink. I'm going to make sure that's locked, alpha locked, like I showed you guys in the first Clip Studio Paint video. Right? And then you go to the lightest pink, and then the thinner area, you kind of have that. So as you can see, you have, I'm going to add that. You have the lighter area with a thinner line because it's closer to the light, and the darker area with a thicker line to represent the ambient occlusion of the shadow down here. Whereas if you did that with this one, you're kind of at an impasse. Where do you put your light colors? Where do you put your dark colors? I'm just going to use this sun that I drew already as a guiding point. And then, right? It doesn't have really a start or end point. It's just kind of there. So, line weight is exactly what I said. It's the way that we base our lines to show different forms of light, of darkness, of heaviness, of a fabric, stuff like that. So if I had, say, a fabric that was super heavy, I would probably use a thicker line. I'm going to bump this up to 30. I would probably use a thicker line for the bottom of the fabric, but a thinner line as I went up, and for things like wrinkles. Right? And this is just a quick example. I'm not going over clothes today. Another way to add some variation and depth to your lines is to kind of fill in corners, again, that ambient occlusion will take up. So on this piece, it'd be somewhere like in here, and somewhere like in here, right? And if these two wrinkles touch, it'd be in this corner as well. And you don't want it to go too far down, because you want it to, you know, maintain itself. You could also round the corners on the outer parts of the fabric or the subject. Kind of like that. And it just adds a bit of variety and personality to your line work. Another example that I had mentioned was if two items are butt up against each other. So if I were to drop this to about a 20, yeah. If I were to drop this to about a 20 and draw a circle, and a circle touching. So clearly this circle is being pushed, while this one is doing the pushing. If you notice, I tried to keep this area clear. This would be the area where I would draw in a very thin line, because they're touching. I would even go so far as to clean up the outside lines here to kind of get rid of a bit of that line. I would also add a little bit of depth to the lines, like that. And maybe even on the outer lines, I would lighten these up a little bit more. And I do apologize if it seems like I'm lagging behind or going a little slow. My computer has been having some trouble today. Here we go. The other thing that I would say about line art that a lot of people get caught up on is how perfect it is. If there's a wiggle in the line, they feel like they need to start all over. If there's a dip in the line, or even if the line doesn't clean up the way they want it, they feel like, oh, I have to restart that line. When it comes to digital art, even traditional art, but a lot of traditional artists don't really pay attention to it because it's not as big of an issue. I take the mindset of stop giving a fuck. That's the mindset that I usually take, because after a certain point, you want to focus more on getting the result that you're going for than the result being perfect. Artists at an inherent level are perfectionists, and it's not healthy at all, but it's hard to let that kind of thing go. Also, if you are a digital artist, shortcuts are your friend. And I don't mean keyboard shortcuts, I mean shortcuts that will help you create what you want to create faster. Shortcuts like brushes, shortcuts like quick keys, shortcuts like auto actions, shortcuts like that. I personally have auto actions to name my layers because I very much like naming my layers. Most of the time I don't do it if I'm sketching because it's just sketching, and if I have, like, say in this folder, I do believe I had saved I had named a few layers because I was working on a commission. But if I zoom in, just from that example, you can see my lines are not clean. They're very messy. But if I zoom out, they look fine, right? Zoom in, messy. Zoom out, can't even tell the difference. So, now, I'm gonna just go over a little bit more because we're at the 20-minute mark and I don't want you guys to sit here for forever. We're gonna go over a little bit more and then we're gonna bump over to something else. Or we're gonna stop entirely. So, the other thing about line work is that people tend to be afraid to erase their line work because they don't want all those pixels. So they hit that undo, 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 undo. And that is a perfectly valid way of doing things if that's how you feel like you need to do them. But I'm gonna tell you guys now, it's so much easier to just go for it and erase and go for it and erase and go for it and erase and then fix those small details later than it is to hit that undo button, because you'll be trying to draw that line and trying to draw that line and trying to draw that line, and you're probably not going to hit that line the way you want. What else? Draw from your shoulder. I see a lot of people, especially on TikTok and especially a lot of younger artists, you guys are working from your wrist and you are on the fast track to getting tendinitis or tinnitus. And that hurts, and it puts you out of commission for so many days just because you have to rest your wrist. Take care of your wrist. Take care of your arm. If you are left-handed, if you are right-handed, it doesn't matter. You need to take care of your working side, your dominant side. You need to take care of that, because if you are studying to become a professional and you injure yourself to the point where you can't pick up a pen anymore, then you're screwed. A lot of people do that spam undo, undo, undo because they are drawing from their wrist and only getting minor results. So I'll show you what I mean. So I'm gonna draw from my wrist, right? And that's not the best circle. It's kind of off, and there's no real control to the line weight or anything like that. If I draw from my wrist, one, I'm going to be drawing bigger, so I'm going to zoom out a little bit. I'm going to be drawing bigger, or, my bad, I'm going to zoom in a little bit because my screen is huge. I'm going to be drawing bigger, and I'm going to be able to control my line weight because I won't have to press down on the screen with my wrist as much, or with my hand as much. So I'm drawing from the wrist. It's a lot more straight. It's going straight up and down rather than being lopsided. So on and so forth. I didn't really do the line weight thing with that one, but I can do it with this one. So this side is clearly thinner, while this side is clearly thicker. But that is a quick overview of line weight and techniques to help you with your line weight. I think another thing is that people seem to have a hard time doing details with line art, and I would say minimize as best you can and then move forward from there. So if you're drawing like an egg yolk, like an egg, you know how when you're a kid you can put an egg in some vinegar and it'll get all transparent and gummy, but you can still see the yolk inside of it? If you're trying to do something like that, you would draw the outside of it, and then the inside, you would draw the yolk with a thinner line. So essentially, if something is obscured by another object, that line would be thinner. let's see, what else? Oh, another thing about line weight that is very important is line weight can indicate distance. If you are working with thicker lines, I'm just going to draw 3 circles. Yeah, I'm going to do 3 circles, or more so, not 3 circles, but like three objects. So I'm going to do a circle, right? A triangle. No, I don't like that triangle there. A triangle, and a square. This would come with a perspective lesson that I'll do later on down the line, but this is how I'm going to show you guys that you can use line weight to your advantage to show distance. So in the front, you would typically do a thicker, heavier line because it's closer to your eye as the viewer, right? Then you do a thinner, more consistent line for middle ground. And then you do the thinnest possible line without losing your visual story for that background object. If I get rid of the figure rulers and I zoom in, you can clearly see the difference. That square is much further back than the circle that's really close up front. And that works with anything. It works for people, that works with buildings, that works with silhouettes, that works with anything. I think that's it. And I am going to show you guys how not show you guys how I do something. I'm going to show you guys the different brushes I use. I'm sorry. I'm very all over the place today. Today was just not a great day for me. So, I'm going to show you guys the different brushes that I use to do line art. There's quite a few. A lot of them came from other YouTubers that you guys know. A lot of them came from the asset store. If I remember the codes for them, I'll put them up. I cannot guarantee you anything. So, first up is the G pen. This is just the basic G pen with no modifications at all. The next up is the real G pen. Again, this is another default brush with no modifications whatsoever except for the stabilizer. And it's one of my favorites because I do like that texture. Right? Next is the mapping pen, which I did modify. It does go to a very specific, as you can see, it goes to a specific size, even when the brush is really big. But this is the mapping pen. Outside of modifying the brush size, I don't think I changed anything. Next up is the turnip pen, which I'm not going to put all the way up to a 50 because it's so big. Right? And this is another, like I said, that's another default brush. These 4 brushes came in Clip Studio Paint by default. Now these are more like custom brushes. This is Inky Dinky. If you look up Inky Dinky in the asset store, you can find it. It's a triangle shaped pen that has a kind of pixely texture to it. And I don't remember how I fixed that. I don't think I ever did fix it. There is a way to fix it, but I don't remember what it is. It might be a spacing thing. So it might be under stroke. Yeah, no, I don't know how to fix it. Sorry guys. I know there's a way to fix it. I'm just not sure what that way is. Oh, it's because the actual brush shape, the shape of the brush is pixelated. But regardless, it's a really great brush. I love it. This one is hard round. I made it to kind of emulate the hard round brush in both Paint Tool SI and Photoshop. Not the greatest brush, but it does what I need it to do. And it will be on my Patreon next week. Yeah, Tuesday. Remember guys, my Patreon updates every Tuesday. Or I try to get it updated every Tuesday. Next is Line. This is by A Oops here on YouTube. This is their everything brush. I got it before they renamed it, but this is their everything brush. This is also one of their brushes. It's called Branch. Really great for quick sketches and overpainting. But if you use it smaller, it's really cool for line art too. This is CT Inky Pen for comics. Oops. Yep. CT. There we go. CT Inky Pen Comic 3. That's that brush. And the last one, I don't think I've ever used this one. Where is it? Hold on. Let me see. This one. There we go. This one's called Com1. Com_1. So those are the brushes that I personally use for line art every now and then. Some of them have texture. I think about 4 of them have texture, and then 4 of them are smooth. And they are all really great brushes. I adore every single one of them. And I definitely do enjoy using each one for different things. Some I use very specifically for background, some I use very specifically for chibis, some I use very specifically for logos, some I use very specifically for illustrations. It just depends on what I'm doing with them. Okay, next I wanted to go over that. I think that was the main crux of it. It's just some really good tips on how to do some line art. And now I am going to show you guys how I do line art for a smaller piece. Like this one. I saw this person on TikTok, and not TikTok, on Pinterest, and I was like, yes! I loved the outfit and the confidence and everything. So I'm gonna use the real G pen to work on them. I'm also going to use my hairbrush.